Well, it is 3:30 right on the nose. So I know we have people coming in and we'll get started. They can of course join us and they'll just join us in progress, but we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So we thank you for joining. Thank all the people that have joined us already and the people that are coming in now. This is our very first iteration of our new Boxlight webinars, and we're actually going to develop these webinars. We're trying to do them monthly and try and keep them typically to the first Tuesday of the month and about the same time. That could, of course, change here and there depending on things that are going on. Of course, this one's super easy because it's, right smack dab in the middle of summer for some people, just starting summer. Some school districts, you guys are really close to closing out. So I know you guys got your fingers, crossed for everything going to work out well for you. But we do welcome you guys to these. We are going to have basically two different tracks of our webinars. And the way we're going to have these set up in these two different tracks is we're going to have one of our tracks is going to be really kind of geared toward the IT tech staff. Um, of course, our fellow salespeople for our company and our partners are always welcome to either one. But the other track that we're also going to offer, and you guys are more than welcome to come to those as well, is actually going to be educator based. So that track is going to be really kind of focused on tips and tricks and just really kind of utilizing the technology to help guide your instructions. The nice thing for us, and I'll do a quick introduction, we'll dive in, but myself, Evan, and Peter as well, we're all former educators. So when we actually dive into those educator tracks, we're going to be giving you, insights and tips that really relate to those classroom instructional pieces. And being former educators, we know that those can work for you and they'll be really helpful for you. But this first one is actually about just summer IT prep. As you guys know, if you're an IT tech person in a district, summertime is kind of a chance to take a quick breath, but it's also that time that you're ramping up for projects and thinking about prep for your devices. So we want to cover some things that are going to actually be helpful for you on that. And so before I dive in, I'll introduce myself. My name's Jason Newman. I am the Senior Manager of Professional Services. And with me, I mentioned their names already, but I'll have them introduce themselves, and it's Evan and Peter. So go ahead, guys, take it away.
Hey everyone, thanks for attending today. It's good to see so many folks in the chat, some new names and some names I recognize. So, welcome to all. As Jason mentioned, my name is Evan. I work with the professional services crew here, and I am the online product and education manager, and basically do online trainings, online resources, a few in person trainings with districts helping out with both educator and IT related questions. So, lots of good stuff happening all around with Boxlight at the moment, and we have plenty to share with you today. But before we dive in, I want to hand it over to my wonderful coworker Peter here, who's also joining us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Carpenter. I'm a training and development specialist with Boxlight. Um, you'll see me supporting software and school districts, but I am just here to listen in, and I'll be learning as much as some of you are today.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Let's go ahead and dive in so we can make the most of everyone's time. As you can see from the title of our session, it's Future Proofing Fall Summer IT Prep with Boxlight. So we will jump right in. Oh, went too fast. The first thing we're going to actually talk about is panels and software and the summer maintenance that goes along with those. So I'm not one of those people that likes to read slides. So what we're going to do is Evan and I kind of talked about this. We're going to do kind of more of a interview style, a kind of discussion. So as we go along, if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat, and one of the three of us will try and help you. And if we get to a point where we don't know an answer to something, you can obviously leave that question in there, and it's something that we can get back to you guys with. When we talk about
Absolutely.
summer maintenance, in the panel side, as you can see, there's a list of things that we'll cover, but I'm going to hand it over to Evan to kind of kick off our interview style kind of webinar here.
Of course. Now, for those of you, and I'm guessing most of the people who are in attendance with us today are at least passingly familiar with Boxlight. As you know, the interactive flat panels are a key part of our business and one of our major products. And along with that, of course, a major substantial piece of classroom technology that needs to be shut down for the summer. So, when you think about sort of your checklist for on your or probably not your way out the door, but on your teacher's way out the door, what needs to get done, what needs to get sort of configured for a month or 2 or 3 long break. What is that going to look like? And Jason has put a lot of thought into basically what needs to be done on the panels. For those of you who've had the pleasure of working with Jason in the past, I know you're probably expecting some things with the device management system, and that is definitely some of it. But there's also some things to do on the local hardware side too. So, Jason, what about the software updates do we need to cover? Because I know there's been some recent software updates that have come out for our panel and other things. And I'm wondering if you could give us a rundown of those, because some of them you may not have heard about from the attendees side, and there's been quite a few recently.
Yes, there have. So as Evan mentioned, there's actually a couple different options for making sure that the panels are ready to go for the summer. And then what that does is it prepares us for, start of the school year, which, as you know, if you work in the tech department, obviously school year starts, the amount of time that you guys have to do anything evaporates like it just, never existed. So we want to look at, summer as a great time to look at some of these things. And one of those things that, Evan mentioned is that software update. So, panels obviously have, from time to time, they have firmware updates. For our Boxlight panels, we try to do a firmware update at least twice a year, once during the summertime, and then once in that winter time, maybe right around winter break. And for us, with our firmware update, we have a lot of great things and a lot of different pieces that have gone into that. So I'm actually going to click on to this next slide here. We are actually in the process of rolling out a new panel firmware right as we speak. It started, I believe, last week, and it's continuing into this week. These are intended for the panels that we have. I show you as listed here is the Vimeo Pro G, the Clevertouch Luxe, and the Clevertouch Luxe 2. Those ones are getting their panel firmwares right now. We have a couple different ways we can do this, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's say you just want to do this manually on the panel itself. You could check for updates. And if it didn't come pushed right through to you, if you do the check for updates in the settings, it'll tell you that there's a firmware update ready for you to go.
And I haven't seen my firmware update come through just yet, but if you don't see it yet, it's almost certainly on the way. We don't roll them out to every single geographic region simultaneously. Takes a little bit to propagate as well. So just stay tuned on that one. If you don't see it today, it's on the way. But there's a lot of really interesting features in there. So I'll let Jason go through the rundown since he's got the slide deck here. Frankly, too many really interesting new features to cover in our time together today, because we have a lot more than panel firmware to discuss. But there's a lot of good stuff that you'll want to check out or have your customers check out.
Yeah, and like Evan said, there's a lot. So I could sit here and go to, item by item. We would spend our whole webinar going through these. The nice thing that we did for you guys is at the end of this webinar, we actually put together a a PDF version of this slide deck so that you'll have all of these what's new bullet points and everything that you can refer back to. But like as Evan said, you might have it already or it might be on the way. So just kind of keep your eyes open in case you haven't had it happen to you yet. So I'm going to hit on a couple of these. I'm going to do the little animations and go through them really quickly just to pull them up here. But as you can see, whoop, went too fast. As you can see, there's a lot. One of the biggest ones for us is the Android 15. So we're super excited about that. We have the ability to, get all of those devices. Maybe they're on Android 13, maybe they're on Android 14. We're moving to Android 15, which is going to give us those security features and all of the wonderfulness that comes with Android 15. You'll also see things like, as always with any firmware, minor bug fixes, or we have the ability to fix the Wi-Fi becoming disabled after reboot. So as you can see, I'm leaving these up here just for a moment so you can kind of look them over, but I don't want you to spend too much time trying to jot them all down because we'll definitely make sure you have this.
Yep. The other big one there is the hybrid functionality, right? That if you have a mixed environment or you have customers who have a mixed environment with a couple different kinds of panels, maybe some of our older devices or even more so some of our Mimio devices and some of our CleverTouch devices, as we've made that transition to focusing on the CleverTouch side of things. Now we have universal compatibility across all of our current panels. That they will adopt all those features. So if you want the side toolbars or you want the floating toolbars or you want unplugged or CleverShare or what have you, you have the ability on everything now to pick the one that works for you in your district. So yeah, there will be no more restrictions like the Pro G can only run unplugged and CleverShare has to be loaded separately. That's all taken care of now.
Yeah, and that's a really great point because I know we've heard, even as trainers, you and Peter have done trainings before, and we hear, I have a mixed environment. I have, this one looks like this and this one looks like this, and I really wish they could all just be standardized across my school district. That hybrid functionality is really going to allow us to be able to do that now. All right. Let's jump into the next piece of this, which is our updates for our software, right?
Yeah, there's a lot coming through that too. So
Yes,
Lynx Whiteboard, hopefully most of you on the call are familiar, but if you're not, that is really fantastic whiteboarding and presentation and lesson creation software. And there is a version that was recently released, I believe a few months back, mostly minor bug fixes on that one. Also had a fun new feature where you can load your own fonts. I know a lot of teachers are really into their own fonts. So if you've heard that complaint, that is definitely something that we're working to resolve and make sure everybody can use their font library to their best ability. There's a few other updates coming in the summer that you'll want to keep an eye out for too on Lynx. So we're always releasing new things on that front. And then the other big one on the panel is CleverLive too. So CleverLive, if you haven't heard, that's our digital signage platform. Really powerful application, but another thing to keep up to date. We keep releasing new versions of that player to address various bugs and add new functionality. So another thing to check.
Yeah, and Evan is our in-house expert on CleverLive. He does a lot of our trainings with CleverLive, so he gets to see it firsthand, and keeping that up to date, as he mentioned, is one way to really ensure everything's going to run smoothly for you, especially if you're using those digital signage features. So having those updates, both of those are great updates. There's a lot more updates available. As you'll see at the top, we have an email list that you can actually get on our in-house mailer that'll send you the latest and greatest when a firmware or software are released. And then, as you see down here with my little winky face, if you're doing the firmware releases, these apps are a part of those firmware releases. So those updates get included on those.
Yeah, it'll save you a step there if you apply the full firmware update. If that's an option, then you'll get those without any additional effort. There's also a couple other things to consider when you're going through and just thinking through the Boxlight suite of applications. Links Whiteboard, if you're using Links organizations or you've applied some users to pro status or shared content with them, now that it's the end of the school year, you might have some teachers moving on to a different district or, different grade level changes, what have you. There's always some turnover in your personnel. Might be a good time to review the Links users that you have registered with that program, see if that's still the up to date list, maybe add a few new folks. And ditto for Clever Live. Now that hopefully there's a little time to breathe in the week's schedule, you get a little bit of chance to maybe update some of those presentations, maybe put together a plan for starting the new year off right in August when folks come back. What are we going to put up for welcome back signage? Are we going to have a new schedule for morning announcements? Are we going to change the timing of anything? Is dismissal the same as it was last year if we had a dismissal presentation that popped up with the digital signage? So just some things to consider planning in advance for that, because putting that all in place. And of course, from our perspective, Jason, Peter, and I, we're always happy to talk about training. Maybe you have some new front desk staff in your office who need to be trained up on the signage, or ditto for teachers who need to know a little bit more about their whiteboard. So might be time to think about some of that as well.
Yep, definitely. And that's so true. Is, you think about a lot of times that gets missed as you're adding staff is, or you're adding devices, you're adding new devices into a school. Maybe you're adding a new wing. Summer is a great time to add those devices in so you don't have that hiccup as it comes along. And like Evan mentioned, especially making sure that they're your new staff are trained on these systems and these programs is a great way to ensure hassle-free headaches for you guys in the future. We also have some other updates and some app just considerations. Lots of our panels now are EDLA, right? So they're utilizing Google Workspace. And I try to include because Google hit us with a brand new icon set. What was it, about 2 weeks ago? And all of a sudden, all
Yes,
the
indeed.
icons are changing. So that's something that you probably want to also make sure that you're installing those types of updates, or Clever MDM if you're using that, which we'll talk about in just a little while.
Absolutely. And then you'll see Clever Share on there as well. Not to leave Clever Share out as another one of our marquee softwares. A few great updates this spring semester from Clever Share. So just be aware you can update that app from the interface there, or push it out. But those updates are quite handy. We've got local webcast features. We can now have touch input on iPads, which is a big deal to those folks who are using iPads. If they want to be able to touch the screen and control what's going on their device, that is a big benefit. And some other useful things like increasing the number of devices that can cast simultaneously. So if you thought of a use for putting 30 screens up on your interactive panel, you could. Haven't quite thought that one through myself, but it's good to have options. And then the other one that stood out to us was the settings lock. You may have experienced this in the past where sometimes some teachers will get a little ahead of themselves and customize their boards to work a little bit differently than some of the other ones. And maybe they don't like some of the features you've put in place on Clevershare to keep things secure and locked down. You can now lock them out of the settings if you'd prefer. So always a nice feature in case you need it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And especially like for the IT tech staff, I know, those settings in locking those settings out a lot of times is a heightened priority for you guys. So having that option there is a nice added feature to that. to that app for you guys. And that happens a lot with our apps as we look for those types of extra layers of security and settings that we can control. So fantastic thought process to just check and see if this is something that you want to make sure that's updated for you guys. Okay. Our next one is actually not about apps and installing the latest apps and everything, but it's actually how do we clean our apps, or how do we clean our panels? How do we clean that data?
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of stuff that builds up through the school year, right? And you don't
yeah,
really know in advance who's saving what to what drive or what location. And of course, people might be, stressing these panels out with adding a bunch of users and so forth that might not leave them in the best working order at the end of the school year. So, a couple things to take care of here. I don't know if anybody's used the Keeper app, but Jason, do you like the Keeper app as much as I do? Because I use that thing all the time. Whenever I see a little hiccup on my panel, I just run the Keeper and usually good to go.
I do. And the way that I actually remember about the Keeper is actually this cute little icon. I don't know why the little robot looking head reminds me that it's there. And typically it's when I notice a hiccup, like you mentioned, or it's just acting a little wonky, I'm like, oh yeah, I would do the same thing for my phone. I would go in and maybe it's time to clean memory out. So we can do that with our panels here, and we can do that locally. So I'm actually going to try and show this to you guys live if it's going to cooperate. So this guy right here, I pulled up and unplugged, is actually, if you're seeing me on my webcam, is my panel right behind me. So to make it a little easier so that my head's not constantly in the way, I pulled it up and unplugged so I could kind of try and show it to you live. So we're going to get out of Clever Live. So that was a nice little, plug for Clever Live right there that you were seeing. Unintentional, I promise, or maybe not. But I'm just going to my all apps. So my device, you'll see right here, I have the Keeper app right here, and I'm going to try and actually click it open. And we have the nice ability to come into our Keeper app. It's got this great one key optimize. So if you click on this button, it's actually going to run both of these at the same time. But if you're like me, you want to see the changes actually happen one at a time, you can click on each one. And as you can see right here, and I haven't done too much with my panel today, but I actually cleared 234 megabits of memory already just by cleaning my memory today. And then when I'm done with that one, I can actually come to my clean the trash, and I can do that one. And look at that, it cleaned out my disk memory. So this is a handy dandy little tool for you guys to be able to use to get rid of some of that extra junk that you might have that's been accumulated just in general use. I wasn't doing a whole lot of instructional pieces today, but it was enough that I needed to clear out some of that stuff. So I'm gonna.
That was kind of my go-to if I hear from a teacher like, "Hey, my panel just seems to be running slower and slower. It was working okay, but not anymore." Um, Keeper's like my one stop. I go there and I run that, and usually resolves the issues. So if you're hearing something similar from your teachers as well throughout the school year, a good tool to keep in mind because a lot of people just miss it in the list of applications.
Definitely. And one of the nice things is when we provide you this slide deck, because you might not think of it off the top of your head, one of the things that we went ahead and did is we embedded a video that kind of walks you through the steps of just what I just did just now so that you could see it. And it's something easy for our partners. This is something easy you can say if they could reach out to you and they say, hey, your customers say, hey, it's running a little slow. Hey, did you try and go to that cute little Keeper app and try and clear out some of that memory or that clear out that trash for you? So it is a good one.
Yes, indeed. And we were talking a little bit about personnel changes, people changing grade levels, changing rooms. Our next couple options are more for that. That there are sometimes things left behind on the panels. You probably want to remind teachers to log out of their accounts, but if they've forgotten, there's a couple different ways to sign out. So you can sign out of their Google accounts or any other accounts they've saved to the panel. And then there's also the profiles too. So if they have a user profile set up on the board, that is run separately from any web accounts. So first we'll talk about these web accounts, and then we'll go into the profiles. But on their way out the door, some teachers may not decide to sign out of the panel. So it's good to know how to do that for them. Or maybe you just copy these instructions down and send them out to your teachers so they can do it for you.
Well, and that's the thing, as teachers, you try and gather all of your things. You're probably, in this day and age where everything's in a cloud drive nowadays, you have all your cloud drives, you have your documents that are now sitting in it, whether let's say you're using Google Docs or everything. So it's all tied to your cloud account. So you're not necessarily having to pick up the pieces of paper anymore, but you're still wanting to make sure that you have everything in there. And then I know when I was teaching, probably the last thing I was thinking about is, hey, I need to remove my account from the actual device. So you're probably not thinking as a teacher, you're probably not thinking that far in advance. So that ultimately kind of falls back on us as, like in the tech departments, is how can I help kind of mitigate that? And so when we start our panels, they start fresh, they don't have those accounts. And I'm going to try and do this again from Unplugged. So I'm going to pull this guy back up and show you it's really kind of simple and easy. Kind of hard to see, but I'm going to actually use the side toolbar over here. And I'm going to go into my settings. And if you notice, I put the quick directions here for you. You're going to go settings, personal accounts, select your desired account and remove those. So we're going to go into personal. And I know it's rather hard to see, so let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Maybe it's going to be
definitely clear on my end now.
All right, that's a good thing. And then we're going to come over here to accounts. And basically, if I want to remove an account, I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy. And I have remove account right here. Now, there's, of course, a couple different ways to do this, just like everything in Android or any of our tech systems seems like this nowadays. But if I wanted to, I could actually come in here and I could go into my file explorer. I could go into my cloud drive and I could actually remove my accounts this way. So I could come here and go to log out. And the nice thing is when I click the log out button, let's see if this one cooperates. As you see right here, it tells you it's going to delete all the cached files. So this is kind of helpful because it's going to take all those cache pieces out. So maybe what you do is this first, and then you run your keeper. It's an option for you.
Not a bad plan. We did have a couple questions come in the chat, Jason. One is, how can we remove accounts with the MDM? Is this a device-only thing, or can we use device management to make this a little quicker?
Well, I'm glad that question came in. You can certainly use MDM to do a lot of this heavy lifting. The nice thing is I actually snuck this in just a little while. So we're going to actually talk about that in just a few moments. But great question.
Fantastic. And the other question was also MDM related. It was, can we update Clevershare with MDM? So pushing out a new APK.
Yep, if you do have the APK for it, you can certainly push that APK down through the devices. It just depends on if you want to utilize it, depending on how you have your setup for your MDM. If you wanted to use a group-based, like school-based or wing-based, you could certainly do that. But if you're even doing just one device, you could do that as well. Just make sure that you have the latest APK in your install apps library. Great question.
Fantastic.
Gonna try. I was gonna get I knew I was gonna get the little intro video pop up.
We're going to see that intro a bit today, aren't we? But it's
Yes,
good to
we.
have it there for posterity when we're not all together. If you're viewing this after the fact, that's totally fine.
Yep.
Um, the other thing, right, that we haven't talked too much about, but we're just about to get into are these user profiles, right? The user profiles are a panel feature where you can have more than one person using the panel and they're not going to see each other's cloud accounts and so forth. They'll have individual PIN codes and sign ins. And it's very much like your smartphone where you sign in and after that you can add all the Google accounts you want if you need to have multiple, like Jason had several of his Google accounts in there. So it's a slightly different process for clearing those out as well. Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but this could also be done from the MDM if these profiles were built in the MDM?
Yes, they can. There is also a feature to remove accounts from the MDM, so that's another option for you guys. And I, for me, the MDM, and I've told Evan and Peter this, MDM is great because it allows me to do a lot of the heavy lifting from a remote location. So I don't have to be right straight in front of each panel to do this. Now there are benefits to being in front of the panels too, is you can double check, make sure you have your latest setups, or you can make sure that, let's say you're utilizing our audio as well. You're in there to check audio. You could do some of that locally, but having the ability to do that from the MDM is a possibility, and it's something that could save you some time, especially if you're trying to hit multiple panels all at once. Save yourself a couple minutes.
Absolutely. Definitely.
And I'll go through these steps real quick just so you can see it. I'm gonna cheat a little bit, but this is how we can remove profile users if it wants to cooperate. It's trying not to before. There we go. All right. So I'm gonna cheat because there's obviously, as I mentioned before, there's a couple different ways we can do this. I can go into the settings. I could even go into our users here and click on my user settings, and it's going to take me where I need to go. But there's also a way I can go through the normal settings. The video that's attached to this is really super helpful. Evan was able to put this together. You can come in here and just delete your user. I'm not going to actually do that because I just don't want to, but you can click on the delete user and it'll remove that user from the profile, so that you only have the ones that you need. So for you guys, if you're in the tech department, you're trying to start completely fresh, you can remove all these users from your profiles on the panels.
Yep. And if you are using profiles and say you just need to, reassign people to different rooms, this also, like we mentioned with the firmware, you can save yourself a step here. And once you remove the profile, any Google accounts that were signed into that profile are also gone. So you don't necessarily have to do the previous step before you do this one. You can save yourself some time and just remove the profile if that's an option. Of course, you may not want to completely remove the profile. Maybe you have a generic teacher profile, everybody signs into teacher, something like that, where you leave the structure in place and then just remove the accounts within it, whatever you need for your setup. But if there are Google accounts in these profiles, don't worry, they're gone. You can't access them from the other profiles.
Yep. And I'm gonna kick this into gear just a little bit faster so that we can have a chance to kind of cover all of our slides. As Evan kind of mentioned, if you do, let's say you're doing factory reset, all of these, your factory resetting your panels, obviously all of those user profiles and those accounts are going to be removed. But what you would want to do then, if you do this, is obviously, of course, make sure that you have the latest and greatest firmware on these afterwards. So it removes those from that.
Yeah, you'll want to check for updates once you're done. Just go in and make sure you check for updates. We don't necessarily recommend in all cases factory resetting a panel at the end of the school year. That's usually not necessary. It's certainly not sort of our default, but there are plenty of cases where you would need to factory reset a panel. Maybe, somebody's forgotten their PIN code, or they left and they didn't tell you their PIN code, right? These things happen where you'll need to factory reset a panel. And you're also going to get all those other steps for free. You don't have to run Keeper after you do a factory reset because it's essentially brand new out of the box. So, yeah, if that does happen, just make sure that you're running those software updates afterwards just to make sure you still get all the benefits of the latest software.
Definitely. And to the person that asked before about MDM, I'm actually pulling up really quickly the various different items that you can use the MDM or the NDMS, depending on what you know it as. It's the same solution, but you can do all of these different things remotely. So you can push app installs, or you can remove those profile users. You can even do your clears of your app data and your cache, all of those available to you. So that's another option. And if you ever need any assistance with that, I'm happy to help, or you can, of course, put in a ticket to our customer care team. They'll be happy to help you too. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah, now we're on to the physical side, right?
Ooh, yep.
We've been talking a lot about software, and of course, we can do a lot of this remotely with the MDM. Sometimes you do have to actually go touch the panel. Cleaning them is an issue, especially if they've gotten a lot of use from the students over the school year. You're probably going to have some built up fingerprints and grime and dust and so forth on those screens. Cleaning them is really not too challenging. There are so many companies that make screen cleaning wipes, and those all work just fine. As long as it's a product formulation that's designed for electronics, you should be good to go. You can even just use your own isopropyl alcohol on a damp cloth or a microfiber and should be good to go. Just please do not use Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes, anything bleach based. Those can be a little too harsh. They're going to probably damage something over time. You're probably not going to break anything if you do it just once, but don't make a habit of it, probably for the best. And honestly, you can probably start in a lot of cases with just a dry cloth. A dry microfiber will go a long way, especially if the panel is in relatively good condition. And you probably will also want to just double check if you're going to be cleaning it and really digging in and trying to get some of that grime off. Probably a good idea to unplug it before you do that as well, just in case.
Oh, definitely agree. And I appreciate you mentioning the alcohol type, because I tried to say it about 3 times and I kept messing up. So I'm glad you said it and I didn't have to.
There you go. That's the science teaching career coming back, right?
Yes, it is. And just one other quick comment on the cloth. As Evan mentioned, you can use a microfiber cloth for a lot of districts. I've actually used this to my advantage quite a bit. The dollar stores sell a lot of microfiber cloths, so you can get a pack of like 10 to 15 for like $2, or probably like $3 or $4 now. But that can give you, that can definitely give you a place where you can get a nice little cloth to leave as you're kind of cruising through the classrooms, and not too bad on the wallet, and as we're trying to stretch our budgets and everything.
Smart.
Yeah.
And we already talked about unplugging it, right? But you might want to consider just leaving it unplugged, or the toggle switch on the bottom, right? There is a little hidden switch. IT folks probably know this already. Maybe some of your teachers don't, but there is a switch underneath that will disconnect basically all power to the panel, and that will disable, for example, the sleep wake button on the front. So consider flipping that to completely remove power draw on the panel, or simply just unplugging it when it's powered off will do the trick as well. But these devices are using power in sleep mode, so you may want to just completely disconnect them and save yourself a little bit of a power bill on that front.
Definitely. Now we're going to turn over to something that you're an expert on there, Evan, and that's MimioSTEM. So I'm going to give you
I don't know about an expert, but our good friends Hannah and Jillian couldn't join us today. So I'm taking their recommendations and then passing them on to you. So this is going to apply to our STEM lineup, which is 3D printers and sensing devices, data loggers for science classrooms. And so we'll start with the printers. And this would also apply to other printers that are not Boxlight printers. So if you're saying to yourself, well, I have some printers, but they're not robo printers, it's still going to be useful. So these printers, they're pretty good to just leave them dormant for a while. It's not the real machinery of the 3D printer that's the issue. It's the filament in most cases. So filament for 3D printing, whether that's PLA or many other types of plastic filament, they absorb humidity over time and they get brittle and eventually become useless for printing. This doesn't happen very quickly where I live in Denver. I'm lucky enough to have a very dry climate. Well, maybe lucky is the wrong word, but in some cases it's good, some cases it's bad. This is one of the cases that it's a good thing. I usually don't have to worry about my humidity too much with my 3D printer filament. But Jason, Peter, I think you guys need to worry a bit more being in the Southeast. If we've got customers from, say, Houston, please take care of your filament because once it gets humidity in it, you can reverse the process by heating it up. Obviously, don't melt it, but you can dry it with some warm air. They make filament dryers specifically for that. They're fairly cheap. We don't make any, but you can definitely find them. You can also heat it in an oven, please on the lowest setting, or even in a pinch using the printer's own bed. But the simplest solution is just not to let that humidity in the first place. It's much easier to just prevent rather than deal with after the fact. So remove it from your printer, seal it up in a Ziploc bag. And most of our filament on filament you purchase from third parties should come with a plastic sealable bag. There is a reason why they give you one of those. And if you have some silica gel, those little packets might not be a bad idea. I don't personally have any laying around, but if you wanted to purchase some and use those to keep your investment in filament going for a longer period of time, that'd be a good call. That is probably the number one thing I see when schools call me up and their printer is just not working right. It is that they haven't taken care of their filament. And, maybe we bought filament 3 years ago and it's been sitting in a cabinet and it's in a room where we open the windows when it gets hot. Well, now you've got some problems. So just be aware, something to take care of, especially if it's going to be sitting out for a summer. And just like the panels, the other thing you're going to want to consider is power draw. The 3D printers, especially when they're off, they're not drawing a ton of power, but just like our panels, there is a toggle switch in the back. If you flip it off, you should hear our fans spin down completely. They're usually going at a very low level when the device is toggled on, but the power button on the front is still off. You might be able to hear a little bit of a buzz of a fan if the room's quiet. Toggling it off will completely turn that off. And of course, you could simply unplug it as well. Not a bad idea, since I don't think the teachers are going to be in printing too much during the summer. So that's the story on the printer lineup. The other one that we have are the lab discs, and those are extremely robust devices. There's not a whole lot you have to do with these over the summer, but it's a good opportunity to double check that you've got all of them and you've got all the accessories for them, because when you have a classroom supply of data loggers, they have temperature probes, they have heart rate probes or monitors, you've got pH probes. Some of those things can wander away during the school year or be put back in the wrong cabinet, etc. So good idea to go through, just organize those. If you have a charging tray, just drop all those lab discs or Explorus lab discs back into the charging tray, and you should be good to go. If you don't have a charging tray, you can always charge these up with USB later on. Both of these devices come with USB charging cables. So just make sure that you have those, you still know where they are, and you'll be ready to charge them up once you come back. The other thing is the pH probes. They do require a storage solution. They come with a little bottle of storage solution that you can slide the probe into when it's not in use. So double check, make sure you've got those. If they've been spilled or neglected by the students, you can always make more or purchase more storage solution buffer. Your science teachers will probably know what to do on that front. but please don't let them sit out for 2 months just completely dry. That probably wouldn't be great for the probes. So that wraps up our STEM topics. Luckily, those products basically you clean them up, charge them up, make sure that your filament is stored, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, those are super helpful because those are definitely an investment. So you want to make sure that all of those pieces, especially the filament, is something that you take care of. And I know from experience
Yes,
with my
indeed.
son, he did not store his filament, and we ended up having to buy him more filament. So
It's super common. And it's especially common in schools, right? Because you get some room in the budget and you have to spend it, or you got a nice grant and you buy a lot of filament at once. Unfortunately, filament has a shelf life, much more so than the electronics in the printer itself. So you've bought all this beautiful filament, probably before you have a chance to use it, it starts to go bad. So let's just keep it sealed up to prolong its lifespan as much as we can. And then you'll make a lot better use of that funding.
yeah, I definitely agree. I think our last section is on the audio and campus communication side. So I know we have about 15 minutes left. Luckily, we can kind of breeze through some of these. Um, but we have basically the same kind of concept, right? We're trying to do some preventative maintenance or some, summertime maintenance to help us keep our systems running nice and smoothly for us. So as you can see, we have these. The nice thing is you're going to see 6 and 7 are pretty much the same thing that you saw with the STEM side and the panel side.
Yep.
Let's see.
Pretty short list here to go through, but we'll start with updates, right? That's a
Yeah,
good place to start as any. We're always releasing firmware updates,
there we go.
and so we can talk about the device by device, right? But just check whether that's for one of our pieces of audio hardware where the firmware would be downloaded and installed, or the time sign, which is going to be the same update procedure as the panels, essentially. There are some options just to make sure that those are available.
Yep. And with the front row mics and things, there are mic updates. Some of them have been around a little bit since like last summer. But if it's been a while since you've updated these items, you might want to double check and make sure that those have been updated so that you can have like the 18-month hibernation battery life, or you can use the front row rollout software, which is on version 1.3.1. So those types of things are going to help you just make sure they're current, make sure they have the items that they need. And here's the
Yeah,
time.
the 18-month hibernation sounds pretty good going into summer. I'll give you some peace of mind that those batteries are going to be fresh and ready in August.
Definitely. And as you mentioned, the time sign update is firmware update is coming this summer as well. So that's going to be a nice little update for the people that have the time signs. We see a lot of use of them. I actually have one kind of hiding in the back here that's running a clock for us. So that update, just kind of keep an eye out for those, and those will be on their way. Um, let's see. So my front row, the version is on to 2.1.1. That's the latest. It's going to work with your firmware for Unity. And as you can see in this image right here, it's also going to this latest one is actually going to show you your mic programming, how you have your mics laid out in the controls, in the new controls page that you're going to have the ability to have more of that on. So you definitely want to, again, update your software, make sure it's all up to date for what you're trying to accomplish, because it's going to just make life a little bit easier for you. And
Definitely. I love seeing all the various ways to configure those microphones, and it's really nice that they're so customizable. But if the teachers forget what all the buttons do, good to have that update so they can double check.
Yep, and that goes along with our conductor and symphony. And I know we're getting real close on time, but I'm actually gonna phone a friend real quick here, and it's our friend Ross, because he deals with a lot of updating schedules for conductor. So I'm gonna actually give him the ability to unmute himself, and if he just wants to kind of talk through the importance for doing updates for the conductor software, it'd be really helpful for us. Ross, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so obviously, we want to keep our servers running up to date just with the latest patches and security updates that are available from Canonical. The biggest thing to keep in mind there is we do not want to update the overall version of Ubuntu because that could cause your conductor not to work. We just want to do the specific security patches for the version of Ubuntu you're currently running on those servers. Kind of beyond that, yeah, just setting up the bell schedule for the next year is great, and then obviously clearing any bell schedules so that you don't have bells ringing throughout the school while nobody's there attending classes and bothering the neighbors. So.
I really appreciate that. And just learning about the security patches was super helpful to me because I wasn't even aware of that. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also, if for our partners, if you guys get into situations where you need assistance, again, we have our ticketing system, and you can reach out to us, and then you probably get some wonderful help and assistance from Ross in the back end. Even though you might not see him, you might get some assistance from him digitally.
Oh, I did want to mention real quick about the microphones, just because I didn't see it touched on. It would be best case scenario to leave those on any chargers if possible. So it is safe for them to stay on the charger all summer long. They do kind of have hibernate features, but especially our older ICR microphones don't have as many of those features, and a lot of those batteries can discharge to the point where they're irreplaceable or have to be replaced and unchargeable. So leaving every one of our microphones just on a charger, they have smart charging. That's always the best case scenario if possible.
Awesome. Yeah,
You
thank
got
you
it.
for that, because you actually jumped right into, I don't have to worry about talking about this
Hey,
slide.
My bad.
No, that's perfect.
that is fine, and it's absolutely a topic. I mean, Ross knows well, but even I've heard from the customer support perspective that unfortunately folks just leave them off the charger. They forget, and especially those older mics, if they're left too long, they can discharge to a point where they can't be salvaged in terms of the battery. Right, you can install a new battery, but better to just leave them on the charger and let those just top themselves up intelligently with the smart charger.
Yeah, that
Thanks for
was.
bringing it up, Ross, because it happens every year, right? We want to prevent that as much as we can.
And I know for me, it's not something that I deal with too much. So getting to hear from Ross that gets those calls, and he gets to say, "Yep, it sounds like it wasn't charged." That was super helpful. So it was perfect timing actually for us on that, because basically we're getting to the end. We have clean microphones, as you see again, microfiber cloth. If you are going to do the soap and water, of course, we don't ever suggest with any electronics. Even, I mean, it'd be kind of hard to do it with the panel, I think, but you don't want to submerge them. Don't go taking the panels or your mics and your audio equipment to lake and trying to like clean them out or anything. That might not work too well. So
Fortunately, our panels do not have a depth rating for their water resistance.
no,
You're thinking about using them in the swimming pool in your campus, please don't.
yeah, that would not be a good look. It might look cool in the water temporarily, but it'll stop working, and then everybody will be unhappy then. And I think the last thing for our audio side again is just like Evan mentioned with them products, and I mentioned with the panel products, is just powering them off. Right, if you're not utilizing them, go ahead and make sure that they're powered off. If you're, especially if you're using, power over Ethernet or things, give yourself a chance to kind of save some energy during the summer and just power those guys off.
It's good to disconnect for a little while.
Yeah.
And it's so convenient with the PoE system too. It makes
Oh,
things
yeah.
a lot better.
It definitely is. Well, we have just 2 more slides, Evan, and we'll actually be coming to an end here.
We are all set. While we're wrapping up here, I haven't seen any new questions come in on the chat, but just another plug there. If anybody has anything burning in their mind right now, just before we leave, if you want to drop us some questions in the chat, we'll have a couple minutes to take care of them. So just let us know. But otherwise, I think we're good. Let's cover the last couple topics here, and we'll send you on your way. But Jason, I know, I think that last slide about the customer support, just keep that in mind too, right? We have our dedicated customer support specialists who are more than happy to address any issues. Sometimes that includes the 3 of us, Peter, myself, Jason, when needed, and definitely Ross, especially for the audio side, is in there all the time, helping people out. So just make sure that you've got that link and that you're able to contact customer support, because they will help you out and escalate as needed if we find any software bugs we can't explain. They've got a direct line off to the developers, so that's always a good thing to have in the back pocket in case you need it.
Definitely. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, we are going to have this webinar recorded, or it is recording, and eventually that webinar recording is going to go to our YouTube channel. So you'll see that. I actually put a little QR code. I love the Google dinosaur that they put in for their little QR codes. But that'll take you to our YouTube channel. Also, as I mentioned before, we have a PDF version of today's slide deck, so you can either scan that QR code, or once we can put this in the chat, I believe we could probably drop the link in the chat. And then the very last thing is a shameless plug to our professional services online learning center. We have a bunch of free asynchronous courses on there, and you're more than welcome to go through those courses. Most of those courses take about 30 minutes or so. And so if you're trying to learn about a panel, or you're trying to learn about maybe some of our software solutions, you can go through the online learning center and go through some of those courses. So that's my little shameless plug for that. So those are available to you guys. And Evan is dropping those links into the chat now for you guys, in case you don't have your cell phone or something, and you didn't want to scan the QR codes or things like that.
Yep.
I think
that about covers it. I think we've gone through the vast majority of our devices from Boxlight, and tried to account for as many different use cases or IT needs as we could think of for the summer. If anybody's got any last comments or questions in the chat, we'll hang out. But that should do it for today. We will be back with webinars in the future. Jason, are we still working to schedule the next one, or do we have a date in mind?
Next one is supposed to happen in July, but that's right after Independence Day. So we're gonna evaluate that one a little bit more. So we don't want to,
absolutely,
everybody's out on vacation celebrating. 250 is a milestone for us, so it might not be a lot of people. It might be us just kind of staring at each other. So we'll definitely evaluate that one.
Yeah, but we'll of course send out all of the information. However you heard about this webinar, whether that was LinkedIn or email lists or some from our website. It'll still be posted up there in all the same places. So we'll be back to talk more, as Jason mentioned right off the top. We do have a track for educators specifically as well. We'll start those up more once the school year is back in session. Probably not a whole lot of teachers are going to be coming in July to listen to us chat about instructional methods, but we'll be covering that as well too once the new year starts off.
Definitely. And I know Evan's already said it, but I want to thank everybody for attending today. We hope that this has been enjoyable, and hopefully you've got some helpful tips utilizing and preparing for, summers. And hopefully these tips will help make starting the school year just that much easier for you.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your day, everyone, and we'll see you back potentially July and definitely in the future.
Definitely. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.